Okay, welcome to Council Club. We are actually just going to be discussing the agenda for this coming Tuesday, the 13th, because there was not a meeting on the 6th due to the holiday. So it might not be a terribly long meeting, but we will go through this week's agenda. So as per usual, real casual, if you want to just come off mute and talk about something that's exciting for you, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, we'll just kind of go through the notes that we had. We were discussing maybe going to the pre-council meeting this time because there's a few things that were kind of interesting that might, we like to count on Dr. Aaron to be at pre-council, but we haven't been, and I actually think that we might have a free enough Tuesday. Actually, I might have a meeting. We might go to pre-council. Scott was kind of digging into the Board of Equalization, which meets before City Council, but still on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. You want to talk about?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. So when you go to download the agenda, it's below it, or it's in order, and it's Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And it's 2 street improvements, which I always thought SIDs meant sewer. Maybe it means both.
Sanitary Improvement District.
Sanitary. But this one says street improvement district. So there's some protests. There's 2 of those, and then the majority of them is 14 snow removal protests. And one that stands out is God's Missionary Baptist Church at 49th and Curtis in Juanita's District 2. They have a fine of $1,900 for snow removal. And there's a couple of other ones. Mainly, it's individual homeowners that got like $100 fine, $200 fine. There's one other one that's bigger, but they're represented by a lawyer. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Baptist church, who is representing themselves, is going to, that's going to be something interesting to see. And that's at 1 o'clock. So if we're going to pre-council, we might just stick around and yeah.
If you find yourselves downtown on Tuesday, let us know and we'll meet you for lunch or something. All right. Yeah. Anything else on the Board of Equalization? No. Okay. Just breezing right through the agenda. I was just noticing there's a lot of in the liquor license section, there's just a lot of applications for outdoor seating, which I think, as we're watching how the pandemic is not over, and I don't know, it'll just be interesting to see how I think, just of note, along the lines of making spaces easily accessible for folks outside, we should just go beyond just patios and talk about how we're using all of our public spaces. And I am actually excited to be working on a parklet project, taking over a parking spot and going to be trying to put in a little parklet. We'll see how long that lasts. But anyway, streets are for people. Let's figure out how to make more room for humans and not car storage.
Yeah, 3 outdoor areas and then 2 outdoor music festivals. And people seem to be they seem to be listening. These 2, one of them's ending at 10 p.m., one's ending at midnight. So we don't expect any
pushback.
Yeah, it seems to be like they're learning not to go past midnight, and probably will sail through.
Yeah, because the last time there was some pushback on an application that was requesting a 1 a.m. End time for the music, and the council made an amendment, motioned to make an amendment on the fly basically and switch it back to midnight and then approved it. So keep an eye on that. Then we just had some questions on SIDs and how Palermo specifically will vote because he hates annexation. So it'll be interesting to see how he votes on SID related stuff. You want to just like nip the annexation in the bud. You can't really be for SIDs in the beginning, but we'll see how that goes.
Did you see the total population though of the annexations? Pretty low.
Yeah.
240 people according to the 2010 census.
And we were also talking about how, there's 3 parts to that package because 2 of them would make it a net loss. And so they had to put in the other one to make it kind of balance out. But again, it'll be interesting to see how, since I was happy to hear that Palermo was vocally anti-annexation. So we'll see how that plays out, I guess. And the annexation vote is actually happening on Tuesday as well. That's further down, 46 through 48 items. 46 through 48 is the annexation. But there's some SID stuff before that. Then I found a weird thing. I'm actually going to maybe try to do a screen share because I'm looking at item number 28, which is over $1 million in resurfacing and repair like street panels. But let me see if I can find this before I share my screen. There's like, okay, here it is, police capital organization funding, which is like, why is that how we're paying for concrete? Did anybody else
So that was in
notice
the,
that?
that's in the attachment.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Because I just thought that was really strange. There's public facilities fund and then the police capital organization funding. Does anybody have any idea? I mean, just to go back to the actual agenda item, I think it was 28. So here we are talking about $1 million in concrete panel replacements. And then here's this weird police capital organization funding. Does anybody know what that's about? Is that weird to anybody else, or am I just weird?
No,
I never understand the funding part. So I don't have any insight.
Yeah, this document just says various locations, so I can't even pin it to in front of a police station.
Yeah, yeah. So I just had questions about that one because I think that's just a little bit odd to me. Usually when you see concrete and panel replacement and stuff like that, it usually doesn't have anything to do with police funding. So I was just curious. Didn't know if anybody else noticed that weirdness. But moving right along, the next one is about the Keystone Trail, which is about $100,000. And I'm gonna share my screen again because we really liked to see one particular aspect of the way that they talk about funding. Oh, trails as transportation. Look at that, transportation bonds. So once again, trails are transportation. I will just continue to shout that from the rooftops. That was Scott Blake noticed that one. Good
Wait
on
until
you.
you get to item 49.
Oh, I know. Trust me, it's very exciting. Why don't we just, let me just see if I had any other notes before we go to that area. Keystone Trail. Oh, I just thought, okay, so items 34 and 35 were just $1 property sales. I just always think that's interesting when like property changes hands for $1. So that is Habitat for Humanity and then the Omaha Economic Development Corporation are both purchasing parcels of land. Hi, dude. How are you? Tiny human. For $1. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. One is on North 24th and then one is way north on 51st Plaza. Just some
Well,
interesting.
if you contrast that to items 90 and 91, the city is going to use eminent domain if property owners don't sell to them so that they can expand off, was it the on-ramp to I-80 from High Street?
Wow.
And
I didn't
another
get to
one
that part.
is through a residential street. So the city will steal your land if you don't allow them to buy it. Here, they're actually going to pave $1. City's
Wow.
making good land very cheap.
That is interesting. We'll have to talk about that more when we get to that part of the agenda, but I did not, yeah, we only got through the actual like action items because we were short on time, but that is a good one to keep track of.
The Habitat for Humanity just reminded me of, we hope, or we think that 4th of July is over, and specifically the fireworks, our dogs, it seems to get worse every year. And they, we noticed that Habitat for Humanity was one of the nonprofits. Is that the one that was for, that a fireworks stand was benefiting?
I think that was what somebody had said, but I don't know.
And we've talked about this before, just about going to all the specific charities and nonprofits that support fireworks and just be like, we're no longer going to support you if you support fireworks, just because
They're terrible and should not be a thing.
yeah, our neighborhood seems to, yeah, we had a couple that were just way past midnight and yeah, nonstop. So that's for another day.
Yeah. The next thing I had on my list was items. I don't know if it's helpful to do screen shares or not for everybody, but since I've got it right here, I just thought it was interesting. Number 38 here is talking about building a new street for about $74,000. And then the very next item is another street for $427,000. And I don't know if they're just obviously maybe a lot longer chunks of road, but this just says 18th and Charles.
So 18th and Charles is going to be a new street on the north side of Sienna Francis.
Okay.
So there's currently like a little trail with a little gazebo or something.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
gonna pave through that.
Okay. So it's a whole new bed and everything. So that would make sense that it would be.
Sidewalks and gutters.
Right.
The other one that's only 72 or something like that, it's an
Mhm.
existing street, so it's mostly a repave and curbs.
See, I'm so glad you're here. Perfect. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. All right, good deal. All right, number 43. I was just, for those folks who are interested in trying to get the elections combined, here is how much we are spending on a local election. So the city is going to have to pay the county $606,000 from the general fund for election expenses. So I know that there are some folks that think, and I think it's probably a pretty good idea myself, to combine elections so that voter turnout's better and all of that. Plus there's just the financial benefit of combo mailing it so that it's not a whole separate expense. And that's over $500,000. That's
Even Ricketts's Nebraska State Election Commissioner, who's appointed by Ricketts, even Ricketts thinks that they agree with that. One of the weird people that does not agree with it is Chris Jerem, and I think even, I don't know if it was Ben Gray, but Jerem specifically was on the news maybe 6 months ago saying that it's better to have city elections so we can focus on it, and never mind that it costs us twice as much to have an election and that turnout is abysmal. But I feel like the tides are shifting towards, but yeah, this is going to be a good time to bring that up. And what specifically, we believe, or we've been told that the city council it could be a charter amendment, but it also could be just a resolution brought by the city council, much like the mask ordinance, or I guess that's an ordinance, but I think we should dig a little bit deeper and put pressure on the city council to be like, it's in your hands. Don't make us have to collect something like 15,000 signatures. It could just literally, someone from the city council, we believe, could just create an ordinance, they could vote on it, and then it would get the process started at least. So this might be a good opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because I think it's numbers 24 through 45. All these consent agenda items, there is public hearing for on Tuesday. So if any of those items pique your interest, now's the time. The other couple on the consent agenda were just about new appointments to the land bank. Number 44 is for a non-voting member, and number 45 is for Ben Gray, who is not specified as a non-voting member. So I don't know how that works. Brian, I'm just now assuming that you know everything. So if you do, let me know why some voting members are, or what's up with non-voting and voting members.
I'm not that far yet.
Come on.
Not on this.
All
I'm
right,
getting
well,
there.
just
I can only cram so much.
that I noticed. No, you're awesome. Thank you. Not to put you on the spot, you're just too good. So I just figured that was something that was just a difference.
It is worth pointing out that I don't know who Tiffany Hunter is, but she is relatively young. She appears to be only two years out of college. So maybe she has some expertise. She did work for Union Pacific and NV Dodge, but she's 2 years out of college. So maybe her non-voting members lack of experience. And
okay.
Maybe this is just her way of working her way up to a voting member later. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I feel like Ben Gray was, to piggyback on that, Ben Gray was also a non-voting member of some organization, and he's 70-something years old. So
I think it's a number of years experience in the particular field, perhaps. I
Yeah.
don't know, just something to point out, I guess.
So it might be a resume filler for her while she gains more experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So then 46 through 48 is the annexation vote, which again, I'm expecting Palermo to vote no. As he has said before, he's pretty consistently votes no on annexation packages, and this one should be no different. And he kind of challenged the rest of the council a few weeks ago to figure it out before the vote comes, because he mentioned that he thinks, and I agree, we need to be building up, not out. So that'll just be interesting to see if there's any discussion around that, or if it's just voted on and he's one of the there's generally, as we talked about several times before, a lot of things just sail through 7-0, like no real communication about it, just kind of like, there it goes. But
Well, Palermo gets to say that because his district doesn't exactly have a lot of open
options
land.
for annexation, exactly.
No, he's one of the few that
So-
is border, we talked about, I think last week, is Bellevue on the south, and there's no islands. So there's nowhere, yeah, he's one of the few where, man, Festersen's got, District 1 has crazy islands inside the 680 loop. Meaning like, yeah, I feel like they're kind of got the blinders on where they're gonna say, well, let's just get all the stuff that's worth it, as opposed to what makes actual sense. Probably already a part of 911 for fire and police. Probably maybe not getting snow removal, but probably part of the sewer. I feel like they're just like, some places are getting annexed, some places aren't getting annexed, but actually have all the same services as the city and are literally probably on their mailing address, it says Omaha. Not Elkhorn, not Boys Town, like they're in Omaha proper.
And that's not to jump down to item 56, but when we're talking about services, and this one's confusing, but while we're talking about that, it's an ordinance approving an amendment to the fire and emergency agreement system with like the Millard Fire Department. So it's like a change in the valuation and the agreement. It's just complicated shit. And even though like Millard is obviously part of Omaha, annexed a long time ago, there's still like some interesting agreements with fire departments and police, and yeah, so it's not always real clear cut how that goes down, but that's item 56 if anybody cares about it. I think I read the attachment last week, and I think it is talking about how it's a little bit of a different way of doing things. Usually they build it one way, and this is going to be, I don't know, complicated, and a change in the way of doing things as it pertains to who pays for what and how as it pertains to fire and Millard. But that's a bit more detailed than I understand. But I guess it just points out that like annexation doesn't necessarily just say, okay, now it's all good and we cover it and like you're part of Omaha now, so our fire stations are yours, because it's still some sort of differentiation, even though it's Millard. Okay, that's a lot of words about that. I'm excited about number 49 because that is something that ModeShift has been working on. That is, I'm going to share the screen just because it's exciting for me. Number 49, park rules. So the attachment here is, that is not the one that I wanted. Yeah, it is. Okay, parks rules. So the thing that we have been working on is, this is the old one, darn it all. Let me find the amendment to the whole. Okay, well, that was a good example of like, sometimes when they change things, you got to go down, because here is the amendment. So the first one was talking about how trails were going to be closed from 11 p.m. to 5. And then now this attachment is, yes, motion by the council member, let's amend the whole dang deal. And so this is the thing that we're excited about. Whoa, not all of that. I mean, sure, all of it. But exceptions include, okay, I'm not going to try to highlight it, but trails open 24/7 for the purpose of commuting and transportation. I was very excited to just see the simple word transportation in this language, because a lot of times the city has like a very hard time using the word transportation when it pertains to trails. So that is good. They also liked our suggestion of, sure, throw in at your own risk. If you're worried about, you know, folks being litigious, fine, law department like that. So that stuck. They also included the 20-mile-an-hour suggestion. That's actually for the car part further down we're talking about. So then it's like, okay, fishing, water sports, sledding, horseback riding, fireworks. And then down here, number 17, talking about motorized vehicles on trails. That was something that was brought to our attention in October. That's kind of what started a lot of this conversation, because they were attempting to ban certain parts or certain types of e-bikes. So e-bikes are allowed, e-scooters are allowed. There was someone that testified last week at council that was very anti e-scooter.
Yeah, she's
And
she's in the
opposition.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's another one too on Longfield Club.
Oh, interesting. I didn't read both of the
Basically not talking about,
Paula hates trails. Oh, streets that are lighted. Okay, I'm coming off screen share on this one because I got to talk about how, okay, yes, we understand that sometimes trails are dark, but you know what? It gets dark at 5 o'clock in the winter. So if you're going to talk about how trails should be closed when it's dark, then it's not 11 o'clock. Like I will just poke holes in their excuses about timing, because yeah, sorry, Paula. That's how seasons work. But anyway, Paula wrote in a letter of opposition saying that she thinks that streetlights are necessary.
Well, Paula can help me raise funds for streetlights. I will sign her petition.
Yeah, cool.
This
Fine,
is sort of a
yes.
thing that we always, I mean, there's that bingo card of whenever we're talking about bike infrastructure, they tell you to get on the trail, get off the trail, get on the sidewalk. Don't, and then this is the same thing, or just ride around. We're talking about closed sidewalks, just walk around. When sometimes walking around would take them an extra 4 hours. And so that's hopefully there'll be some pushback. I doubt it. I feel like if this is Field Club, this is in Begley's district. I feel like Begley's just looking for a reason to be like, nope. When it, hopefully there's gonna be an opportunity to talk. Do we know?
Yes.
This one. So maybe we need to talk again about the park rules and specifically say e-scooters are not, it wasn't recreation transportation, it was
Exercise was what she was concerned about,
no, not
the
exercise,
first lady.
entertainment.
Oh, entertainment.
It wasn't even
yes.
recreation, it was entertainment. They're not even for recreation, they're for entertainment. Yeah, because you're not getting any exercise. So I feel like Spin should come back there and be like, actually, yeah, where are they?
I can tell them that they should send somebody to speak, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be an issue because I think that there have been enough people who are actually like more expert in this category than Paula on 35th Street.
All right.
But I don't know. I guess I do plan to speak again and say that, yes, this is, and while because I personally don't love the scooters, like I don't ride them. I do think they're a little bit dangerous, but I do advocate for people not just always having to use a freaking car to get around. And scooters are used as, especially last mile transportation connections, and they should be treated as such. So I guess obviously I get excited about park rules, so it's a lot of words
Well,
about that.
they'll be less dangerous the more people learn how to use them. If we
Yes.
start raising responsible people, then the scooters aren't really the issue. It's an excuse.
And a lot of the complaints that we have heard is about how, they're zipping down the streets. And it's like, well, it's actually, the issue is that people in cars are like texting and driving and speeding too. And so that's what creates the danger factor, in my opinion. It's not necessarily the folks on scooters, but there's room for improvement, to be sure. But yes, hopefully the more places that we have for folks to ride them, the more they'll become comfortable with it and have a little bit more control. All right, anything else on park rules?
So just as an aside, so it's not on the agenda, but you were just at the opening of the Harney Street cycle track.
It's not the opening.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's
the
the
beginning of construction.
Construction finally started on Harney Street.
And-
We've literally been talking about this for a flippin' decade, and it's finally, I mean, it's not rideable yet, so I'm still holding my breath.
And will
but-
scooters be allowed on that?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
micro mobility lane.
Yeah.
And so we just got a spin grant to study the movements and the types of activity on that area. So yeah. So the Harney Street Trail has been a long time coming. And it's a two-way cycle track from Dewey Park at about 30, I don't know, almost 31st-ish, I'll say, downtown on Harney Street. Two-way cycle track protected with flex post. I don't even know if they're flex post or if they're solid bollards, but that'll be the first protected bike lane in the city of Omaha. And it's not even going to be 2 miles long, and it's only a pilot project. So
I
while it is
wonder if
exciting-
you know, since Harney is a one-way going into downtown and this new lane is 2 ways, are there sufficient lights going west
there will be.
for pedestrians to see when they have the green light?
There will be.
They're gonna have to add those though.
Yep.
That's the city. Right?
Well, the city's not paying for it. It was privately funded because the city doesn't give up.
But even streetlights?
All of it is
Even though the
privately funded.
bollards and
All of it's
the-
privately funded. The city is doing some in-kind installation, but as far as I know, and unless things have changed, and I'm not always kept abreast of some of this stuff, which surprises me because I'm very much interested and involved in a lot of it. But yeah, as far as I know, the $250,000, which is what the project's cost is at this point, is privately funded, which is pathetic. I'll just say.
And one of the things I've been concerned with is we know from the bike crowd that was in front of Omaha Bicycle Company in Benson, it took one complaint to get that removed. And just College World Series had bike parking. It took one complaint to get that basically cut in half. And so I want to get in front of, I don't know when, but I want to ask Public Works, because they're the ones that are receiving these complaints. What happens when you get that first complaint? Are you gonna tell them this is a pilot, or is it just gonna be like immediately
Rip it
removed?
out.
Yeah, because in the past, it only takes one complaint for them to throw the bike infrastructure under the bus and be like, yep, we told you so, we had a complaint.
And
Yeah.
then we can't find documentation of said complaints because we have in fact filed, it's not a FOIA, it's an open records request. Because I was like, oh, really? Where are the complaints? And they were like, oh, well, yeah, we had some. And I was like, okay, where are they? And they couldn't come up with them. So then we actually searched their records, and guess what? There weren't any that were documented. So we're trying to stay on top of it and in front of it, without being too pessimistic, but also like, historical evidence points to maybe be aware that there might be some issues. So that's part of the reason we're excited about the spin tools, is because then we'll have hard numbers, and we'll have the access to the spin tools for a year, which is the length of the pilot project as well. So hopefully by the end of the pilot project on Harney Street, we will also have enough data to say, oh, look at how well this is utilized. Let's make it permanent.
Okay, are your spin numbers only for Omaha, or do they give you comparative numbers for other metro areas?
So we just had like our kickoff call today. There were 5 cities from across the country. I don't know how many total applications they had, but it was Omaha, San Jose, Seattle, Arlington County, Virginia, and written down right here. Anyway, there's 5 communities. I guess maybe are we the 5th? Did I already? So there were 5 communities that spin chose: Arlington County, Baltimore, Maryland, San Jose, Seattle, and Omaha. And so we are going to be having quarterly meetings with those other communities to kind of like share our information and collaborate, and talk about, just kind of how we're learning and what we're learning.
But do you know if your, or I should say, mode shifts portal and for the city of Omaha, are they going to about look at Lincoln or Kansas City?
I don't know. I have no idea what this will all turn into, but I just know that we are going to have access to these tools and hopefully some comparative data. I'm not sure.
It's a pretty crazy database. They're having like a stoplight database. Is that what
one of the tools is called Streetlight, and it's actually like little cameras that it's kind of creepy. It won't like show your faces and stuff, but it'll show types of movements, and it will actually then visualize the data and say, this many people rolled by on scooters, this many people rolled by on bikes, this many people rolled by on a mobility device, this many people walked by, this is how many cars. So it'll actually give us kind of like a good picture of all of the street users
and time of day?
Yeah, so we'll see. We're
and specifically the city of Omaha, when they submitted the request, the one thing they wanted to study was the Harney Street cycle track.
Yeah,
they didn't care about anything else. They're just like, we want to know if it's being improved. So they have numbers in the past, so they can go back in time, and then obviously looking once it gets installed.
Yeah. And so what's interesting to me, and started to delve too much into the spin stuff, but I'm kind of amped about it since we just got the award. The city of Omaha's parking mobility division applied for the same grant with Heartland B-Cycle, and Mode Shift Omaha applied with Creighton Social Science Data Labs. And so Spin called us both and said, hey, we want to make you a super team of all 4 entities as one. Do you want to work with the city? And I was like, we would like to work with the city. Will the city work with us? Because historically, with this administration, it's been a little bit tenuous. But yeah, so we did it. We're all working together, and it's going to be hopefully good. And I'm interested in talking with the parking division and saying, hey, how can we get it so that bike corrals on street parking is a thing that's not forbidden? Because after the bike corral, not only did they yank it out, they wrote a policy saying you can't do bike corrals anymore, which is bogus. So hopefully we'll make some strides there. I will keep y'all posted.
50.
Okay, anything else on parks before we cruise to the next one, which is something that we all may be affected. I'm not sure, but number 50 is talking about waiving the requirements to provide an address at city council meetings. Did y'all see that? That is exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
we were trying to
sure.
think, is there some other group is there another council club that we don't know about, that like how is
Or was it already in the works?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
If it was, why did they tell us?
Right. Yeah. So anyway, we're kind of interested in seeing how that goes. It is going to require a super majority of the vote, which anytime it requires a super majority, that is kind of interesting, because that means you need 5 of the 7 members to vote yes for it to go through.
And then Sarah, I think you said in the attachment,
Yeah, I'm
was
gonna
it,
try to pull that up here.
I think it said
Here it is.
specifically
Yeah, I got it.
about domestic violence was one of the reasons that a person could
Yeah, to protect the security of the individual. Yeah,
Those who have
The
suffered
origin of
domestic
the
violence.
exception was to protect those who have suffered from domestic violence or other significant crimes.
So I was thinking like, and I think David, you might have even mentioned how you don't like to have to give your address when talking about the police stuff. And if that would be, if the city clerk would see that as a reason for you not to have to give your address. And it's not so much that you're worried about the police, but it's more about, like you said, the Proud Boys or anyone that's like back the blue, that wants to be a hero and gets your address and comes and knocks on your door and just try to intimidate you.
As we've seen before, this is not, and I think it's very important to say this is not an unfounded concern. Like we have specific information of this happening to people who have protested or whatever. And so that was part of the reason that we decided to try to take this up, and I'll email our city councilors to say, hey, like we need to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable testifying for all these reasons. And so my concern is that you have to like prove that you're worthy. And I don't really know how much that's good. It'll be interesting to test, I guess, is what I'm thinking. What do you think about that so far, David?
I hadn't had a chance to look through all this yet. So yeah, that seems weird that you'd have to prove. What I'm wondering is like, what's the strong argument like for having to provide your address? Like, you know, I think we talked about this last time, like where it seems like this is an old rule laid over to just basically keep homeowners involved. Things like
I can
that.
see how they don't want people from outside of Omaha, speaking on behalf of the city of Omaha, like who wants to stop somebody from Albuquerque coming up here and causing a fuss?
You know what?
But that you should just be able to tell the clerk your address without necessarily having to tell the city council on camera your address. Like there should be a difference.
And that's what this is specifically saying. So like now that we know that they have a way of doing it, I think we can say, okay, great. Don't make us jump through hoops to do that. We know you can do it. We can give you our zip code, or we can, yes, again, it says the process protects the individual testifying before the city council and ensures that a record of the individual's address is maintained in a non-public setting. And that's the piece, like that's the thing that I'm interested in. So I guess we'll just kind of see how it goes. But I
think during the mask mandate, people specifically said, I'm not from Omaha. Like, I think they might have even, I know you're not allowed to ask questions, but they said, is it okay that I'm talking? Like, oh yeah, sure. And people from like Wahoo who said, I won't come to Omaha with the mask mandate.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more kind of what's not being said is city council and city government does not care about citizens, and they don't really want to listen to us. And they don't want to have to, especially these super long meetings. So they want less public input. It just makes their job easier when there's less accountability, less annoying people just talking at them. I mean, they don't want to say that, but I think that's clearly
part of it.
It'd make their job a lot easier. If they have more people talking at them, they're just going to be like, have to ignore all these people, all these stupid citizens who don't. Yeah, I feel like it's one way to
limit input.
stifle citizen involvement. So
right, and as you know, like that's why we're meeting, right? Is because we want to lower the barriers to participation. The other thing that I thought was interesting with this specifically is that it's up to the clerk. It says the city clerk would then have the authority to grant a waiver. So it's not even, I just think that's interesting when it's up to the clerk. So that will be something that I think we'll probably test out. I know we talked about previously when Louise tested out giving City Hall's address as his personal address, and then he got threatened with a $500 fine for providing false information to an official.
And we asked I don't even know, the secretary, the person at the front, there's a little sign that says, $500 fine. And we asked her, when did this sign get put up? She's like, oh, October. And I feel like that might have been mask ordinance stuff.
Yeah, maybe so. It was before that. Though,
yeah.
But anyway.
But we asked what happens when a city official gives, it wasn't necessarily false information. They're just like, has that ever happened? And we're like, yes, it has happened. We kind of teased it out a little bit. They're just like, I don't know what. Yeah, there's like, they obviously have an out. They can just be like, oh, I misspoke. But that kind of, that was going to be towards the end talking about sidewalks.
Yeah, so I mean, this is good that there's a process, but also you have to do it the day before.
Right.
So
just like Zoom. And
Yeah.
with, I believe with Douglas County, you can call in Zoom that day. They give it, like I said, Dan Esch is one of the most celebrated public officials that we all
He's awesome. Yeah.
love, and he's doing a great job, and just shows how it's in the same freaking building, same like, and how it could be done
Chambers and
differently.
everything.
And there's no, if anything, they're under the same rules of order. But yeah, I just feel like City of Omaha is kind of maybe just being, I feel like I'm totally taking this as a win as far as getting this to their attention, and it's because we emailed them. I can't think of anything else. It's gonna be interesting to see what they have to say against it. And you said it's public meeting and vote on the same day?
Yeah,
Ugh.
which I really don't like when that happens, because it's like, how can they take into consideration the testimony that they're just hearing and vote immediately after? Like, I don't like anytime that is the case, where they public hearing and vote today. Just don't like it.
And I guess we might as well, I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk about, this is sort of the same thing, how the police are going to an encrypted channel.
They want to. That's something that's been brought to our attention a few times over the last,
So
when I was
Yeah,
when I was running for city council, Scanner reached out to me and they said, hey, just so you know, we have some information that you might be interested in about how they want to go to a fully encrypted channel, which is terrible. Like
Like
that
all the
cannot-
time.
Yes. Yes. So that
That's
is
terrible. Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Right.
And they're gonna say it's because the Omaha, it's specifically, I believe it's not for criminals that are listening to the scanner as they rob a bank, because they already have an encrypted channel, but it's
Mhm.
specifically, they hate the Omaha scanner. They used to be buddy, but then
Mhm.
there's definitely a dividing
Falling
line.
out.
Yeah, falling out with it used to be a different media
Mean Streets.
coordinator.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Specifically that worked for the police. The one that had been there for 20 years retired, and now this new one, they don't do any press conferences. And to Omaha Scanner's credit, they've actually solved crimes. They've caught stolen cars. They've helped solve, I think, even homicides. And Omaha Scanner also, when they have when there is sensitive information, they won't they're not just dictating what's on the scanner. They do use common sense. But they also told us that the ACLU will fight it, that it's been attempted in other municipalities. I think Los Angeles maybe had it for like 6 months, and then it quickly got shot down, that it's not.
It's terrible for transparency,
Yeah.
obviously, which is a huge issue that we're dealing with consistently in Omaha and elsewhere when it comes to police issues. So just something that we thought we should bring up just so everybody's aware of it.
It's not on the agenda, but we think we can. I mean, police are always on the agenda. Every freaking week, police are on the agenda. So just if anyone plans on talking about the police, this is something because we wanted to let them know that we know what they're up to ahead of time. Because I wonder, especially like some of the newer council members, they may not know what they're up to. And so it would be nice to get in front of it and get people talking about it, and specifically inform the city council that this is coming down the pipe. We know this already.
And the item numbers that have police money on this agenda are number 55, because that's about the co-responder program, which, better than killing the program. But I still think it shouldn't be a co-responder. I think it should be gunless humans that show up to deal with a mental health crisis. Why can't they dress in plain clothes and have it concealed or something? Like, can they not just look like a normal person? I don't know. Anyway. So that would be one option that you could talk about, police funding and money. The next one is number 57, which is the deputy chief, the 6% increase for the next in line, basically, when the Todd is unavailable. So that is an option to talk about money. Number 58 is about how they're actually going to be receiving, I think it's a grant. Number 58, let me see here.
Oh, the sexual.
Yeah. They're finally gonna deal with the sexual assault kits. That's exciting, finally, because obviously that is something, I don't know if y'all saw the news story, it was a little while ago, but not only are they not processing them, they weren't even reporting them correctly. So that's horrifying. What is your problem, Mr. Bill? Mr. Bill wants to be on the call today.
Yeah, with that deputy or executive deputy chief thing. It's like kind of hard to get too upset about it because it's only going to be like 10 grand, like a year. But like it's a pay raise for something they're already doing.
Right.
So like,
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll go through and be, thought of as a great idea. I don't know if y'all know, but the president of the city council, actually, I think they get a 20% pay increase for acting as the president of the council. Because I actually inquired about that when this first came up. I was like, isn't he just like the next in line? And isn't that just like, I don't know, does the vice chair of the council get 20% or 6% or whatever it is? Like what other
Mhm.
types of systems are similar in this regard? And I don't know, but I'm sure it'll pass and it'll be what it'll be.
the
But
way it's described is it was part of a collective bargaining agreement with the police managers association. So it might be one of those things that like they can't even not vote against it because they've
right,
already agreed
even
to
if they
it.
wanted to, yeah, it's already a done deal. Yep, that it would not surprise me.
I guess, was that, when did that Omaha policeman get arrested? Was that last week?
Yeah,
Was that domestic violence? It wasn't a sexual assault? It was just
that was
domestic violence?
domestic. Yeah.
I mean, that might be interesting just to bring up, just.
I see.
All right.
Okay, I don't know what happened. We're talking about the cops killed the channel. That's what I was trying to figure out is where he went. Okay, anyway, so there are a handful of opportunities to bring up questions about police funding because there's a handful of items.
If you look at the non-action items, 326K for 39 body cameras and 39
Yeah.
videos.
There's so many, how many freaking body cameras do we need? They buy body cameras every week. Like it's actually maybe even on this agenda. I know it was on last ones. It might've gone through. Anyway, it is actually on this one too. I don't remember what I
Said non-action, so.
Well,
Yeah,
they're talking about a
non-action.
different one. I'm talking about one that's already was on. This was probably the third
Number
reading and
98.
vote today.
I think they kind of specified.
No, it's only 98. Do you think it was somewhere else? Body?
Well, it's not going to be listed as body cameras. It's the night vision for the dogs. Remember we were talking about that? That was.
Yeah, I think that was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna just be voted on.
I think it's just a vote today. Anyway, yeah, as per usual, there's plenty of
Behavioral health.
maybe I'm wrong. It's probable. Whatever. Anyway, yes, as per usual, they're buying more night vision goggles and cameras and whatever. A lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
So it says that they already have 586 body cameras, which are also paired with tasers. And like that's one thing they're talking about with these is there's some technology with when the taser is pulled, the body camera automatically turns on because as we've seen, sometimes they don't turn on their cameras.
Right.
Well, and I think I remember I'm almost positive. I think David, wasn't it you that had a discussion, or maybe not? I know you're not allowed to have a discussion, but with Ben Gray when he was still in office, and he was like, the complete transparency. They're going to release the. I think it was Kenneth Jones. They're going to release the footage. Yeah, and he just told you like, just behave. They're going to release it, and it was like, there was no. He never said how long. It's going to, we're going to release it when it's convenient for the police. But yeah, I feel like that would just be another time just to maybe get them on record being like, what is your policy on releasing the body camera footage? Because now unfortunately, we have 2 incidents within the last year where body cam footage was crucial. And I mean,
and it's one of those things where like they say that they can't, all the time. And then as we saw like a month or so ago, they released body camera footage like at city council. Like for somebody that they hadn't even charged with a crime yet.
That's right. The liquor, the underage beer. It's liquor. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3. So we have incidences where someone gets killed, can't release it, and then there's something that hasn't been charged yet. Let's release it in front of the camera, and that was on the news. They put not only was that at city council, it was then rebroadcast on the news. Yeah.
And all those arguments ended up like falling flat. So I guess like. Like they say, it's different when someone's killed because there's these grand jury rules, and the grand jury rules only talk about like what they will have to do later. It's not preventing them from doing what they're always able to do, which is it's at their discretion to release the footage.
And then we were, didn't Deshaun Cunningham say that citizens are allowed to go and view the live footage? There's a room where the body cam footages are being uploaded in real time, and you can't watch them
Kitchen
all.
was saying something about
Yeah,
that.
do you know Deshaun Cunningham? He's at most of the meetings. He's testified a few times. He actually ran for a Chris Jerem seat like 10 years ago. But he has a relationship with the Todd, and he was talking about how there is somewhere where citizens are allowed to go. Maybe it's maybe just citizens, as in Deshaun, is allowed to go and sit in the room and watch the live body camera footage. That would be interesting.
I thought it was Kitchen that was saying that.
Yeah,
I
but
do
about
remember.
Deshaun.
Oh,
Though.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wild. Because I guess the concept is once in a while, there's an auditor of sorts that's checking in on the camera footage once in a while to make sure that everything's fine. I don't really know how they qualify that, but yeah, just learning
And then
stuff
another
all the
thing,
time.
I remember last year specifically with the Axios, whatever, the Axios gives police, they give you the cameras for free and then they charge you
To store the data.
to store the data. And that's where the big money is. So it's a scam.
It's all itemized in here. Yeah.
I think the toys
definitely
are also
costs.
free. It's just like, here, have some free toys. And then they charge you through the nose for the data.
Yeah.
Well, number 98 for the 39 new body cameras says evidence.com
Yep.
online storage.
Yep.
So
I think Axios owns that.
Good times.
Yep, they do. Or Axon.
54. Bread
Oh,
pudding?
yeah. Number 54 was just TIFF. I just like that the company's named Bread Pudding. But it's the TIFF on 15th and Farnham. If anybody, that's again an item that's public
right.
hearing.
So it's an existing 3-story building. It's where that New Orleans restaurant used to be.
Yeah.
Jazz. They're renovating that for $9 million. That's a renovation you could build for $9 million. And they're getting about 10% of that money in TIF. And it's going to be 18 apartments on top of retail. But
Yeah.
man, those things should come furnished,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And are they already working on it? Or is it construction started?
I just see here city planning
Okay.
suggest approval.
Yeah. I just always love it when they say with TIF that they would not be able to do it but for TIF funding, and then construction has already started. It's just like,
Which is
which is it? Are you going to start construction or but for? You have to wait for TIF funding. They're just like, oh, they're taking a risk. They may not get it, but that has never happened. Although, should we have a moment of silence for the one person that did get TIF? Did get a TIF denial? Dave Palladino
crashed his plane. Comes around, goes around. That's all I have to say about that one.
So we're still waiting for the mayor to post. I can never say posthumously give Palladino the key to the city.
Yeah.
And then simultaneously, does anyone know when his funeral is planned for, and are there protests planned for his funeral? Because man, that dude. People did not like him.
Right.
A lot of people give him crap, but they have to remember he was a property manager. He wasn't always the landlord. So
I've dealt with him personally, and he's a horrible human being. I'll just say that on the record. Was a horrible human being.
A lot of people get confused that he owns all of that. He doesn't own all of that. He owns a lot.
He owns a lot.
He owns a lot. But for a lot of the really crappy ones that you've seen on the super, he's a property manager. Other people own that.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be managing the cesspool, and he's not. If you go to bat for one single second with Palladino, I got a real long laundry list of reasons that I think you're wrong on that.
Considering how much money those places are pulling, some of them as little as $250 a month, how much renovations can you give people? But it is on Palladino to do a better job on those things. But a lot of people seem to think that Palladino could just walk around and drop $50K on renovating an apartment that's only pulling like $400 a month in rent.
what I think is you should not be taking any kind of money from humans when you let them live like that. Like that
Yeah,
is
so-
not, that's like a human rights issue in my
So
opinion.
yeah, Palladino should have done
Any type of
better,
option, yeah, well,
but a lot of people's hatred of him is about the wrong things. So
Well, so Sarah's interaction with him had nothing to do with property management, had something to do with some bike fundraising. And like, yeah, she told me the story. It's just, yeah, he's just not a good person.
no, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
right, I don't
And he's
disagree with
rude and he's
don't disagree
hateful
with
and
that.
he's dead, so.
And
Onward.
he's one of the few people that I can recall that's ever gotten a TIF denial. I mean, even the city council was just like, yeah, you're not worth it. And that was in the World Herald article. It was like one of the few that's ever not gotten TIF money. Like, you got to be pretty bad for the city council to not give you TIF money.
Yeah.
You're giving it out like free pizza.
While we're on the subject of denials that don't generally happen, do you want to talk about the planning board?
Oh,
situation quickly?
yeah,
And then I guess we always end up at an hour or over, sorry, as per usual.
So this kind of ties into this. There's a sidewalk, a pole obstruction, a new construction where they put I don't know if it's a light pole, it's some kind of utility pole in the middle of the sidewalk, and they're ripping the sidewalk up.
55th and Poppleton.
Yeah, and we've seen there's a couple of examples on Blondo around 77th where the pole is in the middle of the sidewalk and there's not enough room for a wheelchair to go around.
Yeah, it's an ADA violation.
And so we know that that specifically Public Works is incapable of admitting fault, and that they believe that whatever they do is in compliance with ADA, even when it's clearly not. And then I just so happen to be watching the planning board meeting because that's what I do on YouTube. And I finally saw something got denied, and it was actually another utility pole. I don't know if it was 5G or some kind of utility pole. I think it was a communications pole. But there was a citizen that lived within 75 feet of the pole. He said the pole is 75 feet tall. Okay, wow, it was a Verizon 5G monopole. But he said that if and when the pole were to collapse, it would crash into his bedroom, was one reason. But the more important reason was he claims to have migraines and health related issues to these type of towers. And he was he had a lawyer with him. It was basically him, his lawyer, and then the person from I don't know if it was Verizon, it was the pole company, and planning denied it. And I was like, they never deny anything. They always tell them, oh, if you dot your I's and cross your T's, and if the paper's white, we have to, if it meets all the planning requirements, they always say, go to your city council member. And then city council always says, oh, planning approved it, so we're going to approve it too. So this is the first time I've ever heard the words denied at a planning board meeting. And there's some talk about the 5G network coming to Omaha. And I know there's some pushback on that. And this seemed to be like a foot in the door, specifically to contact this lawyer that represented the citizen to be like, oh my God, you got a denial. Like, how else can we, if you don't want a 5G pole in your front yard, which I've seen some people on Facebook that are environmentalists that have beehives that specifically say like, hey, if you could put a 5G pole, you're going to kill all of my bees. They seem to listen. I couldn't believe the planning board actually listened to a citizen. They're just usually like, pat you on the head and then go away.
Send it to City Hall.
Yeah, so if you're interested, it's at the very end of the most recent planning board meeting, something like 2 hours, 45 minutes into the meeting. We got a denial. So it was interesting to watch. And then, so now this other sidewalk pole.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of emails from folks with pictures of this pole in the middle of the sidewalk. And actually I just got an email from a reporter that wants to meet me out there tomorrow, I think. So I'm going to talk about that as well. Okay, it's the top of the hour. Does anybody have anything else? Like I said, we didn't really get through all the non-action items, but we are gonna. So yeah, that's the next Thursday is the 15th. We're gonna have a little bit more of a discussion around the budget, because the budget hearing's coming up early August. And then, so the 15th, we're gonna have someone come and talk specifically who wanted to present to the group about, I think predominantly police budgeting. And then the 22nd, we're gonna have a presentation about the CIP. So, just a little teaser for you for the next
In
few
the
weeks.
council
We'll
club?
have- Yep, and they contacted me and wanted to come to council club. So, that's cool. We will hear from some new faces in the next couple weeks.
We even heard that Don Rowe is excited about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right, was it council club specifically?
It was just transportation and Sarah
Okay.
Johnson, but it's all kind of the same, whatever. So yeah, we're, fighting the good fight. Thanks for being here. Oh, I know what else I was gonna say. We're gonna be out of town. Scott got an offer to work at a skateboarding camp, the last week of July. So we are gonna be, and I'm going because I can. So we're gonna be not here on, that would be July 29th. So, I think y'all should still do it. We kind of asked Brian if he wanted to lead it because he shows up regularly. So maybe I'll bother you about that more again beforehand, but yeah, either it will be canceled, which is okay, or we'll pass it off, which is better because we don't want it to necessarily rely on us. We think it should just continue to be a community conversation. So yeah, I think that's all.
Yes.
Any parting thoughts from anyone else?
I just can't believe it's already been a year and it's budget time again.
Isn't that wild? I know, what a year. Oof.
Yeah, that meeting last year was nuts. I mean, there was the protest outside and then inside. I just remember people screaming, "Fuck you," and the mayor just like looking forward. I think Jerem just kind of like also like, yeah, wow, I don't think I've ever heard the F word so much at a budget meeting. Okay, have a good day.
It's because I will just put this out there now, like when you are continually told we don't have money for bike lanes, we don't have money to maintain sidewalks, we don't have money for public schools, we don't have money for libraries. It's like, yes, we do. We are giving a third of our budget more than to the police, which we've also proven that the more money we give the police doesn't result in less crime. So until we can like come to terms with the reality of those numbers, it's a tough conversation. Budgets are moral documents. Like we need to get real about where our spending goes. So anyway, next week and the following week, we'll be having discussions about budget stuff.
And you said August is when they present the budget.
Yes, the
Then-
first week of August is when the public hearing will be.
That's when the commentary is supposed to be.
I believe August 3rd.
August. Wow, that's coming up soon.
Yeah, we'll double check. I'll have the firm dates for you next week, but yeah, it's coming up soon. There will be, usually that's the one time that they actually move public testimony to the evening because they know that there's going to be enough feedback from the community that they actually move it to an evening meeting time so that more folks can participate, which is good. So you should all prepare your testimony now. We can workshop it if we need to. And yeah, so.
So on the 20th of this month is when the mayor submits it. So I don't know if it
To the
becomes public
council.
at that point. Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't remember how that all shakes out. I think as soon as the mayor presents it to council, that's when it's public. So then we'll all have, a couple weeks to digest it ourselves and then submit our comments. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's usually like, the mayor writes it because since it is, strong mayor form of government, she just writes it how she wants it, working with the department heads supposedly. And then she presents it to council, which sometimes they try to make amendments, but very rarely does it actually go through because she can just veto whatever she wants. And it's a bunch of rigmarole, but we'll be following it and hope you will too. Yeah, we'll see you next week. I'm
Yes,
gonna hit stop recording, but we won't bail yet. So goodbye, YouTube.